Hello and welcome back to another Bad Company RHS tutorial. This time we're on the new map Chernarus that was added around the middle of last year, and with that came a few new vehicles with the update as well, including this one, Firewall's AV-8B Harrier 2. It's the perfect vehicle considering its update theme was going for a US Marine island assault. And of course the Harrier is still in active service with the Marines to this day. Actually, I think it's retiring next year. Anyway, today I'm going to cover all the bases you will need to know and give some knowledge that might help you in your endeavours as well. Just a couple of disclaimers before we start. This tutorial is only really recorded for the Bad Company RHS Invade and Annex server, so there won't be anything in this tutorial that isn't already available for use in the server. So if you're watching this, but don't play on the Bad Company RHS server, then you're really only getting a quarter of the knowledge that you need for this aircraft, as a lot of the weapons are restricted and Firewall's AWS system isn't available for use. Second, there are going to be a few historical inaccuracies displayed in this mod. This is Arma after all. Firewall did an amazing job this module and no discredit should be thrown their way because of a few minor things that were overlooked or wasn't worth developing. Lastly, read the server rules, specifically rule 3 if you're doing CAS. If you're caught breaking any of these rules, it can easily lead to a short or long-term ban in the server. They are there to keep the enjoyment factor high. We are going to go over the following: threats, cockpit familiarization, loadout familiarization, V/STOL, aka vertical takeoff and landing or short takeoff and landing, HUD Symbology and weapon deployment, control shortcuts, inbuilt FLIR Camera, ECM jammer, countermeasures, and a quick touch on the radar sensor. The video will be chaptered in case you need to return to it to understand something again or whatever the case is. So first, cockpit familiarization. Note, everything in the cockpit isn't clickable and half of it doesn't even visually work. This is more to advance your understanding of the aircraft. I'm also going to generalize a lot of this as this isn't a DCS tutorial. Starting down the left, engine and oxygen controls, external lights, fuel controls, STO stop lever, throttle, nozzle position lever, stability controls. Coming up to the left auxiliary panel, we have landing and flap controls. Upper panels, I'll just go over these quickly. Clock, H2O switch, master mode buttons, option display unit, left MFD, armament controls, UFC panel, HUD, IAS, ADI, AOA, VVI, barometric altimeter, engine/nozzle gauges, right MFD, fuel gauge, countermeasure controls, and another clock. At the top of the cockpit with the mirrors, we also have the refuel lights for tanker refueling. Coming back down to the right this time, we have hydraulic pressure, warning panels, electrics, radio, your IFF controls, internal lighting, and environmental controls. On to the loadout. So of course, this is the RHS service loadout. You can't change it in any way for balance reasons. Here's a screenshot of the loadout via the editor for when you want to practice using it in the editor. Starting from the left, AIM-9M Sidewinder missile, mirrored on the opposite side as well. Laser-guided AGM-65E Maverick air-to-ground missiles, also mirrored on the other side. 3 times GBU 500-pound laser-guided bombs. The 25mm gun pod, nicknamed the Equalizer. Good to have you on board, Denzel. And lastly, the Mark 82 unguided bombs. Before we get into anything else, we first need to understand the VTOL/STOL aspect of the Harrier. VTOL mode, or vertical takeoff and landing, are controlled by the thrust nozzles, located on each side of the bottom of the main fuselage. Down is vector increase, up/back is vector decrease in your scroll menu control. With enough air brake and fully down pointing nozzles, you can come to a hover with this aircraft, useful for landing on the carrier or in tight areas that a FARP may be located or to resupply trucks. You can also hide behind buildings or terrain if you want to pretend to be a helicopter. Fully back thrust nozzles will give you your speed. Max speed is around the 1080 km/h mark, so you aren't supersonic but still haul ass. Once you get good at using these thrusters, you can manipulate the aircraft to pull some fun stuff if you're in a sticky situation. Now please note, when you're on the ground, you will have to increase your throttle slightly to access full downwards position of the VTOL thrusters. And if you're landing in VTOL mode, you'll have to cut throttle just before you touch the ground as your thrust vectoring will reset to the backwards position and send you flying forwards when you touch the ground with any power. So just before you gently touch down, make sure your throttle is at 0. This aircraft will take a bump with this gear, so don't worry. But alternatively, you can just take off or land in STOL mode, short takeoff and landing. The use of flaps can help, and if you're landing, also add a lot of air braking. The way I do it personally, unless I'm in a very specific situation, is I do STOL from either a carrier or base after resupply, and I use VTOL for landing. It can take a while to slow down in a safe manner with VTOL. Just ensure your thrusters are at the fully downwards position and you are air braking the whole way until you are in that VTOL state. Idling the throttle can help, but make sure you catch yourself before stalling. Right, let's do threats. So for the ground, Tigris, missile lock-on range of about 5 to 4.5 kilometers, depending on your speed. The 9K38 Igla manpads and static Igla launchers, lock-on range of about 2.5 kilometers. Shilka, effective gun range of about 2.5 kilometers. And ZU turrets, effective range of about 2 kilometers. And the 50 cal techies, range of about 1 kilometer. And for air-to-air threats, MiG-29, range is 2 dependent on its speed and patrol area, but if you see this thing in the sky, you're either dead or the luckiest man in the world and somehow get behind it. SU-25, a lot more manageable than MiG-29 due to it basically being a fair fight with short-range IR versus IR missiles, or this can develop into a dogfight. If you manage to get behind the SU-25, it's as good as dead due to it being very fat. Again, range is 2 dependent on speed and patrol area. Expect at least a 3 kilometer launch. HUD and weapons. Before I start this segment, please keep in mind all the threat ranges I just listed, mainly Tigris. You will see if there's a Tigris on your radar. So of course, with the HUD, you will have your standard flight symbology, along with all your various weapon symbology. You will see it change depending on what weapon you select. Let's start with the standard flight symbology first. I won't explain the obvious stuff. Heading of the aircraft, climb and altitude, speed in kilometers an hour, roll angle, velocity vector, this is where your plane is truly going, pitch ladder, combining with your velocity vector, this shows your angle of pitch, this is another altitude indicator. Both of these are set to radar altitude, sometimes they could be out of sync I've noticed. This is your pitch indicator in correspondence with your velocity vector. This is your vertical speed, so if you're hovering, you can see how fast you're going up and down in kilometers an hour. And this is obviously your fuel value out of 100. A quick tip, if someone is lasing or you're looking for a vehicle target, you can cycle between the targets that are available with the R key on your keyboard. This will give you an accurate box for reference both on your HUD and radar sensor. Lasers and vehicles will appear the same on the HUD in the cockpit, so if you lock onto a laser, you'll be able to tell which one is which. To practice in the editor, I will link a video another RHS player made down below for getting AI to lase enemy vehicles for you to practice bombing or using your Mavericks on. Last tip before moving on, if you always remember to put a waypoint on the furthest advanced friendlies of the AO, you won't ever have to worry about if you're nearly hitting friendlies or not. To do this, simply use left shift and click on the map to give you a reference point on friendly positions. Moving on to weaponry HUD symbology. Let's start with the 25mm gun pod. The gun has a max range of about 4.1 kilometers, judging by the display on the CCIP, continuously computed impact point. Dot is where you are going to aim. The little bar that moves around on the side of the box is showing you your range, along with a number below the CCIP. The closer you are to a target, the less spread your gun will have, meaning more precise strafing. You also have an ammo count at the bottom of the HUD here. Personally, I would only use the gun for infantry or soft targets such as static weapons, trucks, or jeeps. AGM-65E laser Mavericks. There's only one area you really need to worry about, this is your range metric. If your indicator is inside the two boxes with the line, you are at a good firing range for the Maverick to track and destroy whatever the target on the laze is. If you're outside on either end, the chances of a good hit are slim to none. The max safe distance is 8 kilometers. The closest safe distance is 2 kilometers. Anywhere in between these two ranges is considered a good firing range. I would only really use Mavericks against vehicles, due to them being designed for that. Using Mavericks on targets, like infantry, would be a waste unless no other option. GBU-12 500-pound laser guided bombs. There isn't really a max range on these. If you're high enough and fast enough, you can drop these very, very far away, providing someone is lasing and you dropped on the area of the laze. However, with that being said, dropping too close won't allow the bomb to guide to the target in time, and can result in a very costly mistake for the team, especially if it catches another laser target that isn't the one you were going for. I would say don't drop these within 2 to 3 kilometers of an AO. Though they are much slower than a Maverick, they are much more deadly too. You can use these things on anything you see fit and it'll get the job done. Mark 82 500-pound unguided bombs. You're going to be using that CCIP marker to pinpoint drop these. They're unguided, so whatever you have in that dot when you press the button is what they will hit. They are great for using on stationary targets if you're able to get close enough. Max range is decided by your altitude and speed. Generally, you aren't going to be dropping these beyond 3 kilometers. Lastly, the AIM-9M Sidewinders. These are your two heat-seeking missiles that you can use against enemy air contacts in the skies. Simply press R in the direction of your target, wait for the symbol to fully develop into that magical diamond and fire. Very reliable missiles. Please note, you will have to be close enough to actually see the diamond start forming around the aircraft. Control shortcuts. I'm going to quickly go over this as it's self-explanatory for the most part. You can bind shortcuts for your own convenience in the aircraft. You only really need a few binds for this server in particular, but I just wanted to show you this in case you were going to use this aircraft in the editor or for another server too. I will list them now. ECM jammer on. I will explain what the ECM jammer is in a minute. Afterburner toggle. Now this is only really for the F-18. Inbuilt targeting camera. This version of the Harrier has an inbuilt targeting camera. Now note, you cannot self-laze like you would be able to with a targeting pod, but it's still very useful for spotting targets, unmarking them, or calling them out for the team. You can toggle the camera by default with left control plus right mouse button, or you can change this if you would like to under controls, weapons, optics mode. To stabilize the camera, press left control and T. You can also change its binding in the aforementioned page. You can toggle between night vision and thermal modes. It's only there for recon really, because remember, you cannot self-laze, and you will need to still communicate with your team regardless. Countermeasures. ECM jammer. We have an electronic countermeasures jammer with this Harrier, though not modeled correctly. It is still there. If it were realistic, it would be a pod that you attach to a pylon on the aircraft. However, there is no pod to attach with a mod, so it's just available to use at any time, regardless of the loadout. While I'm not 100% sure if it's even working on the server or not, its purpose is to interfere with the enemy's radar ability to lock onto your aircraft at certain ranges. Though if you're too close, it won't matter and you will still get locked. While this technically classes as countermeasures, I'm going to go over the more useful countermeasures, FLIRs. You have CM burst or single. Single fires 1 time when you press the button, and CM burst fires 10 times when you press the button. I always use single so I can actually control how much FLIRs I want to use. Burst is a bit overkill. You only need a few FLIRs and a bit of maneuvering to dodge an IR missile. Let's just quickly touch on the radar. I don't want to go into detail as Firewall just uses vanilla Arma 3 radars. You can toggle the radar scale with the right control plus a right square bracket, or if it's on the left side of your screen, you can toggle it with right control plus a left square bracket. You could turn the radar on or off with control plus R. This can affect enemy air-to-air radar lock-on ranges such as the MiG-29. If your radar is off, he will have to get closer to fire on you. If it is on, he can fire from a very large distance. I won't go into detail on how this works on this video. I will save it for if I do a video with the F-18 for the server. And of course, you can toggle ground targets with the R key on the keyboard if your active radar cone is facing them to give you a description of the target, such as range and their speed. This also highlights the target with a square not only in the radar, but on your screen too. If you see any targets with an active radar on the screen, then it's more than likely a Tigris. So keep the threat ranges in mind. I will leave a link in the description if you would like to read more about Arma 3 radar. The very last thing I want to cover is the RWR Alert Sound. If you have earplugs in on the server when flying this aircraft, the noise of the lock tone will be crazy loud. So if you're getting locked, just take your earplugs out until the lock goes away. Then when it's gone, you can stick them back in. Yes, the aircraft is loud when you take your earplugs out, but at least you won't get any hearing damage from the RWR sound. You can also just turn your effects down in sound settings and not have to worry about putting earplugs in at all. It's your choice, but at least you know how to counter that RWR sound being too loud now. And that's pretty much it. I don't want to touch too heavy on flying the actual aircraft, as that is just purely down to the amount of hours you put into the editor. There's no single tutorial that is going to make you a good pilot just by watching it. You are going to have to put in the hours just to get competent with flying, especially when it comes to CAS, as you need to always be ready for defense and offense, unlike with transport. Anyways, I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions or concerns, you can ask in the comments or on the Bad Company Discord server, which is linked below. I'm sure I've missed something, as I always do in these videos, but I'm sure if you ask, I can cover it or someone else can help out in the comments. Thanks for watching. Adios.